Well, hi there. Now, this is Ron Rogers, and this little piece is called Viking Cruise Bits and Pieces. Now, if you've been following along, I talked about, air conditioner not working, running into the bridge, changing ships, that air conditioner not working, all this fun stuff, and not having water one day. Well, this is little bits and pieces of the trip that I'm going to throw in here. Now, we went on the 2 week cruise. We started Budapest and we end up in Amsterdam, and you can go this one direction or the other. And the thing was, the ships aren't getting through all the way because the river is a little too low where the yellow arrow is, and we didn't get through Regensburg, and they threw a 4 hour bus trip in there, which wasn't much fun. But I digress there. Let's go back to the beginning. And here is the Parliament at Budapest. And this is the second largest parliament building in Europe, and the first largest is in Bucharest. Okay, pretty darn impressive. And you just see this thing at night all lit up, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Budapest is a really cool city. It was a lot of fun. We had a good time there, good food, good stuff to see. And we got a tour of the inside of it, which was really kind of cool. This is from the non-river side. And of course, it's like all European stuff. I mean, it's really beautiful. You couldn't replicate this today without spending billions of dollars. But back then, people didn't have as much to do, I guess, and they could spend a lot of time and money on putting these things together. Now, there's an interesting thing about Budapest that I did not realize at all, and they explained this. Okay, there are two cities, Buda and Pest. Okay, cool. And when they joined it, the river kind of separated them, but when they joined it, it became one city, Budapest, which sounds a lot better than Pest Buda. And that's why they went with that. But at first, it was very confusing to me. Okay, I was looking for one of these Buddha things. Okay, and no, Buddha wasn't a Nazi. That's the Sanskrit thing that the Nazis took over, and they actually reversed it. See, it's backwards here. It's actually a good luck charm. And there's a little digression story where I bought a house to use as a rental, and I got it at a good price, a very good price, because the people in there were Buddhists, and they had the good luck symbol all through the door, which was the little swastikas. And their realtor, who is not a native of the United States, I guess, did not realize that, no, you don't want that on the doorstep, okay? And I heard tales that people would open the door, look at that, and say, I'm not buying a house from a bunch of Nazis. Well, that's not it. But anyway, because of that, and because the thing reeked of curry, oh, God, did I have fun getting that smell out? Oh, that's a whole different tale. But anyway, I digress. Okay. I did not find one of these. That wasn't the thing. It just means, I guess, Buddha means hilly. So there's a real cool palace up there. Now, these things really started out with forts, defensive measures, and stuff like that. But once cannonballs kind of came in as a militaristic weapon, these walls didn't hold up quite as well, because you could just sit there and pound them with the cannonballs, and eventually the walls would come tumbling down. You could even make a song like that. But anyway, then the castles became more palaces. But okay, that was a fun time seeing this. Now, I'll tell you, the real thing now, I was kind of underwhelmed by the Viking cruise. The ads are a lot better than what you really got, but the one thing that I must admit, it's a smaller ship. We had 180 some passengers, and we got a lot of people sick. We got some people that were injured and left early, and the number kind of went down as we went on in the cruise. But the one thing about it is we met a lot of neat people, made a lot of neat friends, had a lot of interesting conversations. We tried to sit at different tables and stuff like that and talk to people, and we ended up having some good friends. I'll tell you, there's one little funny tale here, and it's kind of strange. There was this older gentleman, and he had a knee brace, and he really had trouble getting around. Well, one of our friends had one of these walkers like this. Cost about $140, and she was using it, but she became kind of sick, and she didn't get out very much. So it was sitting there. Maybe we'll call for an extended period, and he and his wife, I don't know why they thought it was appropriate, but they absconded with this. And she was a very nice person and said, well, he needs it more than I do, so you can use it on the ship. She ended up not going out to a lot of excursions because she just wasn't feeling well. But he ended up absconding on this thing. And why you think you have the right to steal somebody else's walker? And there was quite a walker brigade on this trip, let me tell you. But why you think you have that right? In fact, I remember seeing him on the last day. She said, you can use it. She was very nice and gracious. You can use it, but I'm going to need it to get off the ship. And he takes it up on the last day to the room. I actually saw it. So they actually had to get somebody from the ship, go up, knock on his door, and say, hey, she needs that. So I thought that had a lot of chutzpah there. But we had some great times. We stopped in Vienna, and this 21 year old woman who composed her first concert at 7, I thought a 7-year old composes a concert, dad, 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 something like that. They performed it. It was beautiful. She could play the violin. She could dance. She could play the piano. She conducted the orchestra. This lady was impressive. Absolutely hated her. No, the talent here was amazing. She was very good. That was quite interesting to see. And Vienna. Oh man, I was kind of blown away. I didn't realize Vienna was really as cool of a place as it was. It was just massive. We were starting to get in the heat wave, which wasn't too much fun and stuff, but we had reasonably good tour. The tour people varied a lot, and I found out that Viking kind of told them, when they do the tour in the city, take them by the gift shops, and we had a lot of, you should buy from here, don't buy from here, buy from here, buy from here, and stuff like that. So there's a little bit more of the, and I've had this on other cruises and excursions where they want you to go to the gift shop, they want you to buy stuff, and I think they may have get a little kickback on this. So that was not as impressive. And actually, in one city, not this one, we talked to a couple who actually walked away from the tour guide because they got fed up with it. But it varied, and I think they put that in the critique very definitely. But here's our ship. We were parked at one of the many cities, and you start to lose track of them. But it was quite interesting. But it's a nice little tour ship there, and we had one of the we were on the top floor there with one of the balconies there. But it was nice and fun. And before the captain, and I'll show that slide in a second, hit the bridge with the upper structure here, you could go up there. You could just cruise down the river. You could have a fun time, and beautiful sights, sunset, stuff like that. But we had the issue with the river being too low, so we had to be bused. Well, the river, I guess, at this section was a little too high. And I was in the forward deck there. We were having lunch, and all of a sudden the ship just crunched, and the noise was terrible. And we came to we stopped. The boat stopped. And I said to the server, I said, what was that? And he said, oh, we might have had a lawn chair fall over. And I go, no, that's no lawn chair. We hit something. And we did. And of course, they had it already. It was because they had to lower the upper deck structure to go under these bridges. They already had the upper deck closed off. And I decided I'm going to take a quick look here, even though it said closed off. It's easier to beg forgiveness than ask permission. So I went up the stairs and got a picture of this guy who also went up the other stairs and was kind of looking at what the heck was that. And when the captain had to wiggle the boat to get it free, we were going back and forth and rocking and stuff. It was pretty impressive. But we got free. And of course, they told me, you can't be up there. So I came down. But this is a later picture where you see that where the arrow is. That's the new structure welded on there, not the original structure. They had to put some railing back on, and it also damaged the hydraulic lift too that they used to get people on and off. That's where it really scraped into the upper decking. And we had people come on, and we had, while we were in port, they came on and did a lot of welding to repair it. All right, so one of our stops was Salzburg, and this was where Mozart was born and lived. This was the house that he lived in. The house that he was born in is a different one. But one of the things that Salzburg is known for, if you know the sound of music, all Americans know the sound of music and how they escaped over the Alps. Well, they really did. And there's a few parts of that story we found out, interestingly enough, that aren't quite true. Now, we had a very nice lunch there, and they had these four singers who did a lot of the Sound of Music songs. And we saw, as part of the tour, a lot of the places where it was filmed. where Sound of Music was filmed. But the thing we found interesting from the guide is most of the people in Salzburg and Austria and stuff, they aren't actually familiar with this movie, don't know about it, and it's actually not factual. They didn't go over into Switzerland, the Alps. They went through Italy, which is where a lot of people actually did go through to get out of Germany, and a lot of them were the not nice people, the Nazis trying to escape, and that was actually, I was told when reading some books, it was helped by the Catholic Church, and I've got some issues I'm going to discuss here because I'm Catholic, and there's a lot of history that is just not good in that regard. Now, I'll point that out. But so they did the singing. Now, the interesting thing was when you make a movie, you take a lot of liberties, and one of the fun liberties was the oldest person in the family, Von Trapp family, was a boy. And he commented, they changed me into a girl because they made the oldest person a girl. Okay, well, kind of interesting. Not too factual. And the funny thing was the Americans know the story and the song and the movie and the stuff, and the Austrians, not so much. Most of them aren't even aware of it. Well, we had some interesting stops, and we had a stop at Nuremberg. This was a big Colosseum area that Hitler went with all the troops, and they showed us a lot of pictures of what it looked like. And there's an interesting history in the way Germany treats it. For the most time after the war, it's kind of like we don't want to talk about that. First of all, if you lose a war, that's not a good thing. You don't make a lot of movies with John Wayne if you lose the war. And the other thing is, it was very embarrassing. They simply didn't want to talk about it. Well, about 1967. They had by now the generation's coming along, and these people, this wasn't us. We weren't tied to it, but we don't want people to forget. So there was a lot of work to reconstruct and maintain these things so it isn't wiped away. A lot of the stuff was wiped out. And in Nuremberg, Hitler had great plans. He was going to, great things, great stadiums and all this stuff, and a lot of it never came about. But of course, Nuremberg, they got the Nuremberg trials, and this was the courtroom. Now, the unfortunate thing, at least in my opinion, was that they didn't put the courtroom back historically the way it was. They actually used it as a regular courtroom, so it was, it was changed, and it kept this way for a long time. And yeah, this is the place it occurred, but, if you've seen any of the pictures, this wasn't the way it was set up. Now, we saw a lot of interesting German towns, and they were a lot of fun. And we had a little, my wife had some ice cream because she doesn't drink. And, these beautiful little German cities. And I had one of the nice local beverages to wet my whistle. So it was a lot of fun in that regard. Now, here we are in Wartsburg, and Wartsburg is an interesting town for a couple of reasons, and I'm going to talk about this palace in a minute, and this really kind of troubled me, but Wartsburg is where Röntgen developed the X-ray, and he called it X-ray because, they didn't have a good label, and X sounded good because they didn't know what it was, but the museum closed at 2:30. We got there at 3 o'clock, and kind of disappointing, but and I've had this kind of ability in the past, but I was able to come in kind of a back route and actually get in the museum and get a good view of it, even though it was technically closed. And then the next thing was, how do we get out? But anyway, this palace bothered me because back in the day, the Catholic bishops were also known as prince bishops. They acquired a lot of political power. This was the bishop's house, this huge monstrosity, this huge palace. He wanted it to be like Versailles. The bishop now has 3 rooms in an apartment complex. We saw that picture. But this is his place. And of course, it only has 2 floors, but it's a little bit hiked to get to the 2nd floor. And I mean, this place is ornate. So this is the part that really kind of disgusts me. Okay, you're bishop, but you try to develop a lot of the earthly things, and I don't remember Christ ever advocating that he was going to, acquire great material wealth and that. Although Christ was, and I have to admit it, Christ was the great capitalist, and a lot of people don't understand this, but he takes water, converts it into wine. You talk about a markup. If that isn't a capitalist, I don't know what is. But okay, I digress. Now, here we go. Okay. I don't have this in my house. I don't have the ceilings this high. I don't have a painting of me up on the ceiling. But this bishop has a painting of himself. And down there is the king and the queen kneeling in front of him, So not only did he have the spiritual power of being a bishop, but he had the extremely opulent wealth of being the prince. And there were a lot of these prince bishops, and this is just an embarrassment. You want to know why the Reformation happened? Martin Luther, all those people, you don't have to look too far. And as a Catholic, this is very embarrassing. I mean, it's not like we're all happy about the Crusades and think, man, that was a really good thing, Inquisition and stuff. Nobody suspects the Spanish Inquisition. But anyway, there's not a great history, and it's kind of embarrassing. But then again, people were kind of not the best in the past. We had a great tour guide here. On the left, this house in 1583, it was owned by a butcher. That's the two little axes up there that symbolized he was a butcher. Now, a couple of teenage girls said they had seen him change into a rabbit, and they accused him of being a witch. So what they did was they took and imprisoned him and his wife for a year. And in those days, you had to pay for your own imprisonment. You had to pay for your food. You actually had to pay for your torturers. And they tortured him for a year. And finally, just, I guess, to relieve the suffering, they admit they were witches and they were beheaded. Wonderful history. Gosh, people can be just so wonderful. And, of course, being an artist, this guy down here, that monkey, if you can look, is a little more endowed than the church pastor really liked, and he ended up putting the artist in jail for quite a while. He was finally liberated. But this town, it had two issues. One was it tended to flood a lot, and there were some high water marks and stuff. But the other one was during World War II. Okay, it was a big Nazi enclave, like a lot of them were, and it was full of Nazi presence. And this is that same square when we were there also. And of course, they were very forthright on the stumbling stones here, where it was the Jewish people who were, taken away to be exterminated, and also on the right side there was parts of the Berlin Wall. And of course, here we are in Cologne, or Köln as they pronounce it, and there is a god-awful, humongous theater there, cathedral. Now, if you go to Europe enough, you can get a little cathedraled out. We had seen Notre Dame before it burned down. We've gone way high up in the structure and stuff like that. This obviously was a very impressive edifice. And stained glass windows, man, that was really cool. Just absolutely beautiful church. Now here we get to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and my wife had never been to Amsterdam before, so we spent 3 days there, showed her the red light district and stuff like that, and the crowds. I guess I was usually there on the off season. I couldn't believe the crowds of people, but this was my first time that I ever went to Europe, was to Amsterdam, and I saw this museum, and I saw these amazing portraits that were huge and would never fit in my living room. This one's kind of nice because this was the guild people, and they're looking at somebody. I guess they were really big into fabrics and that, and it had to be really well made. And this is somebody who's trying to get the approval for their fabrics. It's kind of like, your girlfriend bringing you home to her parents. The looks there like who the heck you think you are. But anyway, we had that tour. And of course, we also had a nice canal tour, and it's probably one of the better ones. The first one I was there, when I was first there in Europe, I was dealing with jet lag and I was falling asleep. And they would do Dutch and German, and then I think English. And by the time they got the English, I was finally waking up. So I missed a lot of it. But this is a very good canal trip, except it was raining and we didn't have very good view out the windows. So part of the tour, I took my wife to the red light district, and of course that's the historic red light district. The Amsterdam, it's a little more loose. There are quite a few adult shops there, and prostitution is legal and stuff like that. And that's the Amsterdam flag. And you're going, well, heck, of course it is. Look at it. It's a triple X rated city. Well, that's not quite right. That's the St. Andrew's cross. He was crucified on a cross that went, this way instead of the upright one. So that became the symbol for Amsterdam. So, all right, enough of this activity. We go out to the Amsterdam airport, and it is time to go home. 3 weeks being on vacation and now still trying to recover from jet lag. But it was a fun trip, and those are a few of the highlights. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.